Tanya, and today we will talk about Russian language. If you can hear me, if you can see me, as always, please let me know. I hope everything is fine and we won't have any technical issues today. Thank you for joining me. We have 2 minutes before the tour starts. So, as always, please let me know if it's your first tour with me. Do you know Russian language, a little bit of Russian? What brought you today? And yeah, if you have any expectations about this tour, hello, Jonathan. So I also opened this tour on my laptop, so it will be easy for me to share some links with you. I hope it will be useful for you, the tour. So while we still have some time, let me welcome everyone. James, Marta, Deborah, Adrian, ML. Yeah, James wrote Kai Dil La. So James, it will be, I'll just write it, but we will talk about this phrase actually. It will be Kak Dila, which means how are you in Russian? Kak Dila. But and so yeah, normally I start the tour on time, so just introduce myself for those who haven't met me before, who don't know me. And I also will tell you about the tour, things that we are going to cover today, and then yes, and then we will start. So now it's just me welcoming everyone. ML, James, Marietta, Sue, Helen, Margaret, Vera, Mary, Virginia, Lena, Sheen, Melissa, Jonathan. Also, thank you for your feedback, Melissa and Sheen. I hope I didn't mispronounce any names. Simon or Simon, Doreen, Virginia, first tour with you. Know some Russian. Haven't been able to go to my regular class this semester. I miss Russian. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you for sharing a little bit. I also want to see how much I have forgotten. Not done Russian before, but really interested in languages. I have family who are Spanish speakers in Tourism. So thank you very much for sharing with me. Like first of all, let me introduce myself and let me tell you why did I decide to do this tour. So my name is Tanya. I'm a professional tour guide from Moscow. I've been working as a tour guide for over 6 years, and I do all types of tours. I show the highlights of the city, the most beautiful places such as Red Square, the Kremlin, Moscow Metro. I also show hidden gems, and on my tours I talk about Russian history, Russian culture, Russian mentality, and Russian literature. I did my bachelor's degree in journalism, which means that my knowledge of Russian is a little bit higher than the knowledge of an average Russian person. So it has a lot to do with languages. It has a lot to do with literature. And also I work as a language teacher. I teach Russian as a foreign language. So I have some experience in this field, and I also understand what it takes to learn a new language. I speak English, I speak French, I speak a little bit of Hebrew. I studied German, and now I'm learning Spanish. So I hope it will be useful for you, and I will be able to share some tips with you today. With that being said, of course, it's important to mention that it's not a language class, and I don't think it's possible to learn language in 60 minutes. Of course, this tour is called the Intro to Russian Language, so it's more like the introduction. And one of the ideas behind this tour is just to debunk some stereotypes about Russian being a very, very scary language. So my goal is just to show that it's not as scary as it may seem or as it may sound at first. So this tour is mainly for those just who may not know much about Russian language, who want to learn a little bit more about it. Unfortunately, I mean, with this format, when I'm not able to see you, it's not easy to do a language class, but again, I'll do my best. So we will be able to practice. We will have some interaction with those of you who are interested in it. And let me tell you what are the topics that we will be able to cover. So first of all, is it a difficult language or not in general? So I'll share just my opinion and the average ideas, what makes it as a difficult language and what makes it as a not a very difficult language. Tips to learn the Russian alphabet, English expressions that will help you to learn Russian, and how knowing English is already good to learn Russian. Why speaking French can help you even more than English. Insights into the Russian language, and we'll talk about Cyrillic alphabet, just a few words about it. I'll give you some words, some phrases that we will try to translate, and also I'll talk some language groups, some themes of words that we have from English, and then also some phrases that they will help you to remember Russian. Yeah, case endings are certainly case endings is one of the most difficult parts of Russian language, but of course it's important to say, like answering the first question, if it's a difficult language or not. It all depends on the language group, and I'm going to share a link with you in the chat. So we can see and we can get an idea of what are the languages that are similar to Russian. And I'm also going to show you in my presentation the Slavic languages. So here is the group of Slavic languages. You can take a screenshot if you want, which means that if languages belong to the same language group, of course, it will be easier. It will be easier not only in terms of the vocabulary, but also in terms of grammar. So, for instance, in Russian, which is a good thing, can be a good thing for some people, we don't use a there. Also, in Russian language, we don't use the verb to be. So if I say I'm Tanya, it will be ya, I, Tanya. So I don't need to say am. So in other Slavic languages, it will be the same logic in terms of the grammar. So if you know more than one language, or you know 3 languages, so for instance, now I'm learning Spanish, and it's pretty easy for me after French, because I can see the similarities, I can see the same logic. And again, it's not only about the words that are similar, but it's also about the grammar structure. So one of the popular questions that I was asked during these days is about the similarities between Russian and Ukrainian. So my personal experience is approximately 60-70% of Ukrainian we are able to understand. So I was in Kiev in 2012, and I remember that I was speaking Russian, obviously, but everyone responded to me in Ukrainian, although everyone speaks Russian there. Well, the majority of people, let's say it this way, or at that time. Yeah, but it just took some time for me to process, but I was able to understand pretty much everything after watching some shows, some TV shows and movies in Ukrainian. I'm able to understand, I would say, like approximately 70-80%. It also depends on the conversation, it depends on the topic. Statistics, the information that I found online shows me that it's approximately 50-60%. And so the languages are really close, are really similar. Another language which is also similar to Russian is Belarusian. So we have this language group. And in Belarus, everyone speaks Russian. Many people know, the majority, I would say, also speak Russian better than Belarusian. Belarusian is kind of the mix between Russian and Polish. So if you know Belarusian, it will be easier for you to learn Polish than if you know Russian. Let me go through some of your comments. I hope it's clear. If something is not clear, just let me know. Melissa, I have an excellent teacher through Duolingo. Yes, I mean, Duolingo is great. And I also recommend this application. It helped me to with French, and also now I actually use it every day with Spanish. Am I right in thinking that you have a text called Cyrillic? Jonathan, yes, and we will talk about Cyrillic. We'll say a few words about it. So I hope it's clear. And from my experience, the best Russian learners are also the ones who speak Slavic languages. I mean, meaning that if they're not from the former Soviet countries, but there were people who just wanted to learn Russian. So I met Serbs, some Serbs who were able to speak Russian really well. I also had a colleague, actually, he was also a tour guide from the Czech Republic, and he was able to learn Russian like just do conversational Russian in I think 2 or 3 months, which was really impressive to me. But at the same time, I'm also able, like as a Russian, I'm also able to understand some parts of Serbian, Czech, at least basic information. Again, this is something that you might know about Spanish, Portuguese, Italian. These are languages that are also similar. You don't even need to learn the language just to understand some of it. Does Russian have any original dialects? Vera is asking me, it's a very good question. People often ask me, no, not really. The reason why is usually explained because in the Soviet Union, there was the system. So everyone had to speak like the standardization of the Russian language. So we have some words that may be different in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Like the biggest battle is about doner kebab. Believe it or not, it's true. Like we have a lot of jokes about it. So in St. Petersburg, it's called shaverma. In Moscow, shawarma. But we are able to understand it, and there are just some other words, but there are no like dialects. The only thing is like you can hear an accent, but it's the same as in the United States. Like you can still distinguish the accent. So in Moscow, it is the same, but if you talk about, if you'll go into details, of course, Russian in Ukraine will be a little bit different from Russian in Moscow, and it will be certainly affected by, or in Belarus the same way, but will be affected by people speaking 2 languages, being bilingual. Through Hego, I've learned a bit of Slovenian and Croatian. Amazing. That sounds fantastic. So let's, and why is it good to learn Russian? What are the benefits of Russian? So Russian is widely spoken, as I've already mentioned. Ukraine and Belarus, these are certainly 2 countries where most of the people understand and also speak Russian. And we can look at the map where with some other countries where people speak Russian. Let me just tell you, well, basically it will be former Soviet Union countries like Latvia. There's also a big Russian population in Latvia, in Estonia, Lithuania, Baltic countries, Moldova, the country close to Romania, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. And if you'll try to learn Uzbek and Tajik language, it will be much bigger challenge than learning Russian. So if Russian seems, this is just, I'm saying from the perspective again of how close the languages are. And today we will see that Russian is more like a sibling. It's not a brother to English. And I believe that most of you here, yes, obviously speak English. So that's why we will compare it mainly to English. But if you speak some other languages, again, it's always helpful because through history, every language was influenced. Like, and some of you mentioned Spanish. And as I said, I speak Spanish, so sábado, it's Saturday. Yeah, Saturday is obviously Shabbat in Hebrew. So this is the influence that we can hear. Some other languages you speak, easy it will be. So with Russian, it's amazing that it's a widely spoken language, and traveling around the world, you might find that in some areas, in some places, people speak Russian better than English. And I've experienced it myself in places like Georgia, Poland, also in Israel. Like I lived in Israel for 2.5 years, and there are Russians who moved to Israel in the 90s. It was actually my grandmother. So she didn't really speak Hebrew, and she could manage with Russian. Out of 8 million people, there are 1 million, approximately 1 million Russian speakers in Israel. So it's also very useful. Sound, yes. So the history, two men, Kirill and Methodius, they decided to create the Slavic alphabet for the Slavic languages. And one of the ideas behind it, was a mission, basically to spread Christianity and to translate a Bible for these Slavic languages, so to create this alphabet. It might sound also challenging to learn a Russian alphabet. We have 33 letters. We'll take a look at it. But at the same time, once you learn it, it will be useful not only with Russian, but with some other languages. So it's named only after Cyril. It's derived Cyrillic. Why Methodius is not mentioned? Well, we don't know. Life is not fair. So basically, in Russian, it's called he's Kirill, not Cyril, and the alphabet is called Kirillitsa. Sounds similar, actually. So today we will see that once you get to learn the pronunciation, Russian pronunciation, it will be easy. So Cyril and Methodius, they were Christian missionaries to the Slavic people and are credited with the devising of the alphabet that is now also referred as Cyrillic. So let's take a look at it. Oh, sorry, that was a mistake. Something happened on my tablet. I haven't noticed it. So let's take a look at it. 33 letters. So before I'll give you some tips on how you can learn the alphabet, I would like also to say a few more words about learning Russian. So here's the alphabet, 33 letters. The craziest thing is that we have some letters that do not exist in English. So this is one of the challenges, like sh, and you can hear this letter in the word borscht. Borscht, it's Ukrainian and also Russian soup. The best letter, and actually the most difficult for most of the Russian learners, is U, but if you pronounce it as E, it's also fine. Just a tip on how to learn it, like just imagine that someone is pushing you in the stomach. But another interesting fact about Russian alphabet, that we have some letters that are not even pronounced. Yes, we have this letter, but I mean, like, even the sounds do not exist. So we will get to it. So this is also something interesting if you like, I don't know, kind of like riddles. So what is good about Russian language? First of all, I can also tell you that in order to understand the language and like some of the things about it, some of the things about its grammar, you may pay attention at the mistakes that native speakers make in English. So for instance, many Russians have issues with the word structure, with the sentence structure. Why? Because in Russian, we don't have this strict order. And this is also easy, I mean, for Russians, but at the same time, it can be easy, like if you're not that strict in terms of the word order. And in my opinion, it's also something that makes our poetry absolutely amazing. And as some of you know, I'm a big fan of Russian literature. So let me give you an example. Sounds a bit like sh. Exactly. Yes. So today I mainly refer to English, but again, there are some sounds that exist in other languages, but they don't exist in Russian, in Hebrew. Yeah, so since I know a little bit some Hebrew, they're like, or in Arabic, they have like 4 versions of, and it's so difficult for us. So again, it often depends on what languages you already know. So let me give you an example. When we say Masha loves, Masha, it's a Russian name. Masha loves Vanya. Just some typical Russian names. Masha loves Vanya. In English, we know that Masha She's the person that we are talking about. But in Russian, we can say Mashu любит Vanya. So we will change, by changing the ending of Masha, we will understand that it's not about Masha, but it's about Vanya. This is called cases in the Russian language. So it's one of the most difficult parts because it's like conjugation in French also, when you have to remember all of these verbs. So it's also challenging in Russia, but this way we are able to understand it, and this way it might be confusing. Can you write it in Russian, Melissa? Only for you. I'm not sure everyone else will understand it. So I will write Mashu любит Vanya. At the same time, I can say Masha любит Vanyu. So instead of Vanya, I change it to you, and then this is how we understand. So again, the one we're talking about, the main character, the star of the show, he stays the same. So it's the imperative case. I hope I didn't go too much into details and it's clear for everyone. If yes, just let me know. I hope it makes sense. And let's talk about some other good things about Russian language is that, again, you don't need to know the word to be, you don't need to remember about is, are, does that make is a passive sentence. A passive sentence, no, it doesn't. So it just makes Vanya being passive, like the one who we change, the name that we change in Russian, he becomes like the object, not the main subject. Yeah, that's what I mean. With the passive, it's a different story. I'm not going to talk about it because I think it's for, let's say, A2 level of English, of Russian. So about the alphabet, even though it may seem quite difficult and quite challenging to learn, my recommendation is to split into groups. So make the whole sentence was a direct sentence. Again, Mary, answering your question. So what we will do, we will split it into 4 groups, and this first group will be the letters that have the same sound as in English. So I'm going to write these letters in the chat, and then I'm going to pronounce them. So you can repeat after me. I'm going to write them, by the way, in Russian, so they might be a little bit different, but I think it's easy to recognize. So the first one, A. The next one is K. M. M. So I will say the sound, the sound. And then O and T. It's good. I'm 6 months in learning and it's beginning to make sense. Oh, thank you, Melissa. I'm happy it helps. Mary, oh, bienvenue. Cyrillic Methodius added a lot of extra letters. The Greek alphabet has only about 24 letters. Yes, but again, it has something to do with the sounds that we have. So let's talk about the words that we can make today. So I'm going to write them in the chat. I will read them, so you can repeat after me. Tot. The first word is tot, and it means that. Tot. The next one is kot. And if you're a cat lover, remember the word, it means a cat. So tot, kot. And then let me write another one. Tak, which means so or thus. So even with this first intro lesson, you're able to read some words, and you're able even to read them in Cyrillic. And let me show you this picture I took from my favorite book. But again, this book I recommend if you want to learn Russian with a teacher. If you want to learn Russian on your own, which is very impressive, I can recommend this book. It's often considered as the best book. Oh, sorry, my tablet. So it's the New Penguin. Why is it good? It's because they also, in my opinion, it's also it's widely recognized as one of the best books to learn Russian. But also they have so many great explanations for English speakers that can help you to understand also Russian culture, and it will make more sense than just looking at the language book. So this is, it's not a new book, but again, it's YouTube channels. Yes, again, it just depends on the style, but I think my personal recommendation is just to have the combination of everything, because the language, has grammar, it has speaking part, so everything is good, but whatever works for you is good. And we can also share some recommendations in the chat. So let's take a look. So this is just something to match, but we can see even with this one, you can already read the words. So the first one is caught. I'm going to read them. Caught, we already know. Caught, it's a cat, and you can read it. So now with the words that you know, you are able to read cat. The next one, I think it's pretty easy. It's mama, which is like mommy. Mama is mother, mama. And then the last one is tomat. Tomato, 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 tomato. Yeah, so we can see it at the picture. So I hope my daughter has had that book since uni and loves it. Yeah, thank you, Susie. Thank you. Yeah, we don't have that many people today online, so I think it's also a good space for us to share some recommendations. And I'm also impressed to see that some of you already know a little bit of Russian, and it's also great to share your experience. Again, if you need some of my recommendations about languages in general, I'm also happy to share. So let's go to the second group. The second group, these are the letters that exist. They exist in English. The sounds exist, but the sound is different. So the same letter as in English, but the sound is different. So I'm going to say that B is V in Russian, E is Y, N is H, R is P is R in Russian, and it can be a bit confusing. And then there are actually a few more. So this will be the second group. Then you will go to the third group. The third group, it would be the sounds that exist in English, but there will be different letters. And the fourth group, my recommendation is just to have the letters and the sounds that don't exist in English. So this way you will be able to learn the alphabet in like 2 lessons approximately. As an English speaker group, second is the hardest for me. Yes, normally it's the most confusing one, but at the same time, I mean, if you approach it as a game, I would say it could be interesting. I will just write one word as an example because it's a sign that you can see all around. I'll just show you again. I know it will be easy probably for Melissa, but still, if you want to figure out what it is, it's an easy word. It's all around the city in Moscow. And often, when tourists come, they ask us, tour guides, like, why is Pektopan everywhere? Why is Pektopan? And we're like, what? What do you mean? So what I wrote you in the chat, it's actually a very, very easy word to understand. It's in Russian, restaurant, which is restaurant in English, a restaurant. So with this being said, let's go to the fun part. I think it's the best part of the tour. It's you trying to guess words. What do they mean in English? So the idea behind it is just to show you that there's so many words in Russian that are of the English origin. And mainly it's about the themes. It's about the fields from where we have many words. So we will cover some of them. And again, once you know the context, it's also easier to understand. Let me give you some examples and then we can play the game. So work and business. Administraция. Administraция, it means administration. And often when you have tia at the end, in Russian, it usually derives from English tion, Tion, or French sion, administration. Another example is корпорация, corporation. So I hope it makes sense. Let me read Jonathan's comment, and then I'm going to read a word in Russian. And if you want, of course, you don't have to. You can write the English translation. What do you think it is? I used to have an atlas that had a list of the Cyrillic letters. Nice to know what they mean now. Thank you for your feedback. So let's go to the first one. Are you ready? If you're ready, just let me know. If anyone wants to play this game, I think it's, again, the best part of the tour. Thank you, Jonathan. Yes. So let's see how it goes. So the first one, deadline. And Melissa wrote, yes, she wrote da in Russian, da. So it will be da и нет. This, we had like two ministers that was in the Soviet times, so it was like Mr. Da and Mr. Нет, because they were always like, one of them was da. And often when Russians, so the word was deadline. Any ideas what it means? In English, deadline. It's a Russian word in Russian, deadline. Wish I had known the letters when I went to Moscow. Vivian, I wish you'd have a chance to come back to Moscow. Yeah, it's so I don't see any answers. I hope it's not that difficult. Deadline. I said it in deadline. Okay, so I will just say it. Say in English, it's deadline. So it shouldn't be, yeah, so deadline is deadline, so it's basically the same. Let's go to the next one. Business. Any ideas what it means? Business. So thank you, Hélène. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Yes, it's business. It's pretty easy. And businessman will be businessman. So it's more about like the pronunciation. When you get used to the Russian accent, the Russian pronunciation, it will be easier. So let's have one more. Ассоциация. It's actually a long word, but I hope it will be easy. Ассоциация. How do you write these words in Russian, Mary? I can, so what I will do, because the challenge is, with the open lessons is when you have people who already know Russian pretty well, so like the different level of Russian. So that's why it's more like the introduction to Russian tour. But for everyone, what I'm going to do now, I'll just copy the words. I think it, yeah. So I copied the words, And then you can see it in Russian. You can see phonetic translation, which is transliteration. And then the, Russian phonetic transliteration and the translation in English. So if you want to have homework for today, this can be homework, and also then you can go through these words, and I think it will be very helpful. Let's go to the next topic. Yes, so thank you very much for your answers. Thank you for being active. The next one will be occupations, the next topic. So I'll give you some examples, and let's see if it will if we will be able also to guess some of the words. Animator, animator, animator. I'm just looking like for the easiest ones. Architector, an architect. Designer, 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 designer. So let's try. I'll say a word in Russian, and then you can just write it in English. Doctor, 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 doctor. Thank you for your answer, Mercy. Yes, Shane, Jonathan. Yes, you're right. Doctor is doctor. So the next one, journalist, journalist, journalist. Oh, Melissa, thank you. Yes, journalist. Yeah, I used to work as a journalist. Yeah, I used to work. No longer work. Not the best job for Russia these days. Okay, so we have, let's go to the next field. I'll just mention some words, and then I'll tell you more. So the other one is media and communications. So the reasons behind it, and most of these words came to our language after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 90s. So basically it was a new country and many new occupations that we didn't have in the past. Some occupations came from France. So that was a period of time in the 18th and in the 19th century when the nobility used to speak French, and for many, French was the first language. For instance, if you'll read A War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, you can see that it starts with a conversation in French. So this is one of the reasons why I speak French. I studied it for a year and a half, no, actually for a long period of time at the university, because I studied journalism, because I studied Russian literature. So it's very, very important to know French. And this way you can see there's just a huge list of words that come from French. But as you know, there are also many words in French and in English that are similar. So those of you who speak French, and I guess, I've seen there must be some French speakers in here. So congratulations. You are even more lucky than all the other people in the chat, because we certainly had a very, very big influence of French culture and French language in particular. Today, media and communications is certainly one of the biggest fields with a so-called Anglicism, because, well, everything is new about the internet. Internet will be internet. You just imagine, that you're a strong Russian man, like how they speak. I don't know. I hope I don't sound this way, but in any case, it can be helpful. So how Russians speak, like with the Russian accent. Hello, my name is Tanya. I speak Russian. I know this language. And so this is the way, this is also the way to pronounce words, just like. The end of the tour, I'm going to share with you a video with comedians making fun of Russian, to be honest. Not easy to watch for me, but I don't know, it could be interesting for you. So one of the guys, one of the comedians, he was like, when I'm at night and I see that someone can rob me, I pretend that I'm Russian. I speak with the Russian accent, so they get scared and nobody is going to rob me. Maybe it's also a tip, I don't know, for the future recommendation. It will save your life, but who knows. In any case, oh, maybe not. It was just a joke. So we had internet, blog is blog, and let's try with some other words. So let me, blogger. You know Bert K? No, I don't know him. If you want, you can share the link in the chat. Blogger. We also have many words. Blogger. No, we had professions before. Blogger is blogger. Your worst pronunciation problem is. So let's go to website. Website. Or we often say site. Website, site. So the first one was like blogger. Russian, now my voice pronunciation problem is. Yeah, I mean, it just takes time. Like if you have a lot of Russians in your area, it's easier, I guess. Website. Thank you, Helen. Thank you very much. Thank you. So let's do one more. Video. So video is video. Yeah, pretty easy. Another field is house and household supplies. So basically, it's all about new technologies. These are the things that many didn't have in the Soviet time, so they were not invented in Russia. So it's all about like everything that is new. House and supplies. Just give me some examples like toaster will be toaster. Television will be televisor, lamp, lampa. Also a lot of words about politics. So basically president is president. So here we go. ML, thank you very much for your contribution. I really appreciate it. So it's a tip supported tour. So everything that I make today is purely based on your donations and your contributions, and this way I'm able to do more tours and I'm able to organize more tours for you. So that's always highly appreciated. And let me just read a passage in Russian and then with an English translation. You will get an idea that many things might be similar. Я креативный мерчендайзер. I'm a creative merchandiser. Всем respect. Respect to everybody. Сегодня weekend, и я готовлюсь к отличному драйву. It's a weekend today, and I'm getting ready for an excellent drive. С утра фитнес. Далее lunch с тостами и беконом. Fitness in the morning, then toast and bacon for lunch. So a lot of words about food. Obviously, it would be the same, like similar. And it's important to mention that in Russia, young people tend to use like so-called Anglicism. Like they tend to use English words, tend to make them kind of like, sometimes they make it Russian. So for instance, they would not say to click, but they will say klikat. They will add the Russian suffix. So this is the way it is. Some of the words my dad won't understand, but Russian teenagers, but it's this trend I can see all over the world, that, you know, when you're young, you want to be cool, and then you use like a lot of words. I had the same problem. So I just wanted to show everyone that I speak English and I speak some English. So, but it will be easier, of course, to understand. There's so many words. Melissa, James, Vivian, thank you a lot for your contributions. Now we will go to another interesting part. I think some English words and phrases that may not make a lot of sense in English, but they will help you to remember some Russian expressions. So what is in the picture? It's yellow, blue bus. Looks actually very dangerous for me to show this bus during these times. You know, people get arrested for wearing t-shirts with these colors. But in any case, yellow blue bus sounds like "Я люблю вас," which means I love you. I love you. And it's in a polite way, because in Russian we also have 2 ways to say you, like in French or in Espanol. I shared it with you. So if you, I missed 2 letters. So romantic expression. Я люблю вас. So instead of be, vas, you say vas, and it sounds like I love you. Isn't it amazing? So the next one we have, it's like a horror show, or like a scary show, horror show. And it sounds like хорошо, which means fine and good in Russian. And in general, I will also share it in the chat. And in general, it's great to have like associations, because they will just help you to remember, especially with the languages that are really distant from your native language. So just to have like a picture of something might help, and it's just kind of fun. Another phrase, it might be very useful if you'll decide to travel to Russia. So in English, it sounds like, what can I do? And in Russian, it will be vodku найду, which means I'll find vodka. And it's a pretty easy way to make friends. It's a joke. I'm kidding, but at the same time, it's also true. It's also true. I did Drink Like a Russian tour, where I talked about our drinking culture. Maybe I'll be able to repeat it, to do it again. But in any case, here's the phrase that might also help you with Russian. And the last one I'll share is, how are you? So you can already have a conversation. You can say like, how are you? And then you will say fine, хорошо. The next one is cock dealer in English, cock dealer. And it sounds like, how are you? I'm not promoting anything today. It's just Russian. It's just about associations. So sounds like как дела, it's about pronunciation. Say как дела. We will understand you. We will understand what you mean. And of course, it will be highly, highly appreciated. So this was everything that I wanted to share with you today. So as a bonus, what can I share with you? So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll just give you some minutes, and meanwhile I'll share with you some links that might be your homework if you want to, of course. So the first one is Russian alphabet with Masha, and of course it's great, especially for kids. Masha and the Bear is the #1 Russian cartoon animated movie. I know that Masha is pretty popular, and of course it's very useful also to listen to the alphabet, to listen to the songs. And then he's asking me, how do I pronounce? So what I can say, that some letters, they're similar. In Russian, it's a little bit different. I will write it. This is the capital. So it's U. In Russian, it's a letter U. I'm learned from BG, Radio Silence. Yeah, there are many podcasts. There are many applications. There are also applications for conjugation. One of the also essentials, in my opinion, and from my experience with languages, is to be interested in the culture, is to love the culture. So if you're interested in Russian culture, it certainly helps. Like this way, it's easy to listen to Russian songs, to and with Hey Go, it's pretty easy when you have like Russian tours, when you have I also do concerts with my friend. So yes, my friend who is a professional singer, I guess some of you might know her. So she performs songs in English and in Russian. So it's also a way to practice Russian. And it certainly helps. Like one of the things that helps is repetition, like when you listen to the word. 12 words with Russian origin. And there are not that many words of Russian origin in English. but there are some, and most of them, they have something to do with also Russian kind of like innovations. So this is more about space. So Sputnik, 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 yeah, Sputnik is the Russian word that I believe Mir, the station Mir in Russian means both peace and war. So this is one of the words. Soviet, it's a Russian word as well, Soviety. A lot of words that are related to food, like food topics, like something like borscht, yes. So this would, you can go to, there is a big list, like you can always find this big list. These are not uh, very popular words. And since we have some French speakers, I will also can also share an article about French in Russian language. And as I promised, I'm sharing comedians speaking about Russian language. And let me go to your comments. So I remember seeing Masha, the bear, when my sister was younger. Yeah, I haven't watched it because, you know, I was already pretty old when Masha appeared. But I know Masha is pretty popular. And one of the special tours that I'm doing this weekend will be in children's department store so they have 65 years anniversary. There's also a big like figure of Masha. Yeah, this is the biggest children's store in the world, so it's like heaven for children. So if you're interested, uh, join me on, yeah, I think it's this weekend. Yeah. Yes, I love the older Russian rock. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. I remember. Yeah. So I'm happy that I was able to inspire some of you to listen to Russian music thanks to my tours. And also, I guess, yeah, some of you know the reason why, one of the reasons why I keep doing tours is just to show the other side of Russia, something that is different from the media, especially during these days. And I think Russian music is, especially Russian rock music, because Russian rock music for decades, that was the music of the protest. And lyrics are very deep and they're very profound and powerful, poignant. So yeah, with Russian rock, it's great. It's always good to practice Russian, to learn Russian, but also to get a sense of Russian culture. Mercy, thank you very much for your contribution. Oh, Melissa, thank you very much for sharing. There are many more. Maybe we can do a rock concert, but we need some more listeners. So, Melissa, you can. I believe that we can inspire more people to be interested in Russian rock music. Melissa, any recommendations on Russian rock? I actually had a playlist on YouTube with the Russian music. It was actually Russian and Ukrainian music because I think I'm still able to say it, but I love Ukrainian music. They have some really, really great musicians. So there will be some in Ukrainian, but I can search on my YouTube channel for the playlist. I created it for my students. So as I already mentioned, I also teach Russian as a foreign language. So this was something. In French, there is bistro. Oh yes, bistro. Yeah, it's a French. So Mary, I don't know if you know the story behind it. So bistro, it's bystra. It's actually good that you mentioned it because remember I told you about this letter. Uy, uy. This is the letter, weird Russian letter. So uy, and most, especially also French, they pronounce it like I. So bystra, which means fast, quick. And when Russian soldiers came to France after 1812, the war with Napoleon, they were like, please, faster. Like they don't need time just to sit down, relax. You know, it's cold in Russia, so everything must be fast. Like you don't take your time. And then this is the story about bistro and bystra. So another word to remember. Melissa, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I have complied a list of Russian and Ukrainian. Yeah, Shin, if you want, feel free also to share it in the chat. There's also Berezina. Yeah, Mary, but I don't know if I'll be able to do the tour in I don't know about France. Again, it's about the audience, and but in Russia, it's more about Borodino, by the way, the bottle. Berezina, it doesn't mean anything in Russian. We have Beryoza, which means birch tree. A birch tree is the #1 tree. But as I said, and I think there is a big connection between Russia and France was always big and important for us. And this is also something that I talk about on Immigration from Russia tour, the first wave, because the first wave Russian immigration, the center of immigration at some point was Paris, and also Paris became the center for Russian intelligentsia, like intelligent Russian people, smart, educated, Ivan Bunin. I also have a tour about Ivan Bunin. So thank you very much, everyone, for your comments. I'll take a look if I'm able to find playlist for you. But if you enjoyed this tour, I really appreciate if you could write a review. Always helpful for me to do also more tours and for others to learn more about Russian culture. So yeah, I found the playlist. Just let me know if it's if you can open it. Yeah, and if you enjoyed this experience, also you can make a donation. You can make a contribution. As I said in the beginning of the tour, everything that I make and also HeyGo makes is based on the contributions. That's how we are able to have this platform. This is how we are able to invite more tour guides and book onto your concert tour with your friend. I missed it last week. So Jonathan, it will be a different concert. It won't be a Give Peace a Chance concert. It's just in a park, but hopefully we will be able to do Give Peace a Chance concert one more time. So I'm a big fan of my friend. I think she's an amazing singer. It will be in a park, so hopefully we will, yeah, so I schedule it. It's more about her singing. Yeah, so to say thank you in Russian, see James, it will be spasiba. It's written with O, but in Russian it's pronounced with spasiba. A tour focusing on Russian idioms would be great to highlight more of Russian culture. Vera, yes, the issue is, again, it's all about the audience. Like when you have a small audience, unfortunately, this is the beauty of like HeyGo, that everyone can join the tour, but at the same time, it's quite challenging for tour guides to do the tour when the topic is not very, popular. So this is why, again, like all of the contributions, including reviews, are very helpful. So this way we can have a bigger audience and we can attract. But slowly, I'm also thankful for all of your support, because these days, having bigger audience than I had like actually 2-3 months ago, I'm able to do like more hidden gems tours, to do more special tours, not only like the highlights. But thank you for all of your suggestions. I really appreciate it. I will keep it in mind. And if the time comes and there will be more people who are interested, yes, we can do it, because it's certainly a very interesting topic. So Mary, Margaret, thank you also for your contributions. Oh, Maris, I don't know. I don't think I'm very popular. I'm still a long way to reach our French tour guides. But yeah, I mean, in any case, I'm really grateful that I'm still able to do it. Yes, Helen wrote, "До свидания, до свидания" means goodbye. By the way, the direct translation is till the next date. It's more like au revoir in French, but in French, yeah, au revoir, see you again. More like that. До свидания, which is actually a very good way to say. I will write it, so it means that I'm not saying goodbye permanently. We will see. And I also, on my tours, I often say пока пока. Пока пока is more like bye bye. So this is easy to remember. Пока пока. Пока пока. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all of your contributions, Margaret, Cynthia. We will be more than happy to see you on my tours this week or in the upcoming weeks. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. Пока-пока from Moscow with love.